Watch people, welcome to this week's edition of the Sunday Sermon. This one, like the others, is very important. This week we're talking about truth speak. What is that? Well, it's the ability to be able to speak from your heart in a way that's uncensored, in a way that is fluid, a way that is maintaining your inherent and innate truth that resides inside of yourself. What we've experienced in the last few years has evoked even more of that wanting to be heard, wanting to be seen in a lot of us. Because we can't rely on politicians, MPs, celebrities, very much placed, controlled opposition who pretend to speak for the people. So because we can't rely on any of that, it's down to us again, isn't it? Which, for me, is always very exciting. So, why is it that people find it so difficult to be able to say what they feel? Perhaps a lot of the time there is not enough validity, enough attention, enough value placed on intuition and instinct and a knowing. I feel there is a massive connection to how people feel about themselves as to their transmission and output in the world. There are dozens of people, if not more, who I know personally who feel very much the same as me about what's going on in the world. However, they have not been able to take the shackles of unique and individual truthful expression off of themselves to be able to take their place in the beautiful choir of the outspoken. So, I mean, I get it. It's a difficult thing to do because if we go back only recently, and again, I don't put too much emphasis on history. However, going back only a short while, if we were to look at sort of the Victorian way of raising children in an environment where they should be seen and not heard. Now, I'm not saying that we were raised in Victorian households. However, that practice, those rusty tools of being a mother and father were handed down. And I personally had experience with older generations in my family where they expected us just to be quiet and sit still. And anything other than that would have been met with disapproval, with judgment, with criticism, and sometimes even more. And then if you take that and then also lend that over to the education system, I forget how many times I was told to be quiet, to shut up, to sit down, to just be a plant in the room. And if anyone like myself has got children, then you see that's the antithesis of what children are, right? Children are movement, they're dynamic, they're engaging, they're enigmatic, they're a wild, raw, primal charge of this cosmic energy. And of course, like children, you could say, that haven't got the experience of us. So we're better placed. We've got a better perspective on lots of things when it comes to experience, it comes to safety, it comes to boundaries, it comes to sort of just being able to share an experiential wisdom with your children as to why they shouldn't do that. However, that's on one side, but on the other side, like, I think the children are very much more connected to source than we are, because they're less tainted, they're less conditioned, they're less indoctrinated, especially the ones who don't go to school, to traditional schools. And yet we still have this sort of this feeling where like they know less than us, you know. And I feel because we've gone through that process ourselves, we've gone through those structures and all of the censorship that goes with that, which really does negate any animation and expression. Then I feel we get to like adulthood, and we've never honed that expression. We've never honed that skill. We've never honed that voice. We've never been able to allow it to sing, to allow it to come out of us, and to be this powerful harmony that we put out into the world, into the ether. And I think that's one of the reasons is that we're not practiced in being able to speak from the core part of ourselves. And then there's something running very close to that, parallel to that, in fact, is that we have, many of us, and this is for generations, right? I'm not just talking about my mum and dad, but like the generations before that, and lots of other people around me whom I can see have got similar childhoods, or at least a similar transmission of the mum and dad's voice throughout the childhood, where a lot of the time, again, it's the repetitive suppression again in the words, right? Like, shh, be quiet, sit down, don't do that. And I feel like of course, like, children have to have boundaries, for sure. A lot of the time they're wild, unsafe little monkeys, and without having some kind of care around them and a little bit of a friendly voice saying, maybe you shouldn't do that because that might end in tears, I think that's very, very valid as a mum or a dad, a caring mum or dad. However, like, if it's delivered in the incorrect way, then what I think it does is it makes us shut up again. That we're not recognised, we're not seen, we're not heard, and we go into ourselves. And then that feeling then of not really knowing ourselves, and not ever having this feeling of like, oh, this is who I am, and this is I count, you know, I matter, and I'm important, and I'm allowed to say what I want to say, and I'm allowed to get my point of view across. It's not just because I'm little that no one wants to listen to me and I'm pushed out of the way. I can say what I want to say. And I feel that happens at home in what we could say traditional mother and father structures, and then it's in the education system as well. That's very, very prevalent, of children just be, sit down, shut up, and I'm going to tell you, the teacher's going to tell you what it's all about. And of course we take that into our jobs as well, right? There's a boss there who's telling us again, and then there's politicians and media and all of these experts who supposedly know our lives better than us, and then add doctors into that as well, and you're sort of like, well, like, when do I get to make a fucking decision? When's anyone going to listen to me? So I think all of this stuff, a lot of the time, it's very systemic in the relationship to us feeling disempowered. And then once you've got that feeling of disempowered, then you don't really want to stand out. You know, you just want to be I just want to go through life, and I don't want anyone to look at me. I don't want anyone to notice me. I just want to go through life and keep my head down, and I don't want to rattle anyone, and I just want to go through life and no one even notice me. And I think a lot of the time that happens to people, probably subconsciously. And then the thought of standing out makes people straight away get feelings of like anxiety, sweaty hands, their face goes red, they blush. I often give this example, like imagine you're at a train station and there is like this really, really big queue for the ticket office and the train's just pulling in, and or it's a ticket machine and you're putting your money in the machine and it's not working and everyone's huffing and puffing behind you and there's a big queue and you're trying to, and then you drop your wallet and the change goes everywhere and you're picking up coins off the floor, and there's that feeling, which is a very, very natural situation, that someone's just had an accident, someone's just dropped something. But the feeling we would get from that would be sort of like this real feeling of like being judged and criticised by our peers. And then that's that sort of like, I want to be hidden, I don't really want to be noticed. So then all of a sudden we've got all this stuff playing out in our societal structures, and then something comes along where we are confronted with what is, it's not too much of a stretch to say it's genocide, a state-led genocide of people. Depopulation, you could say. Maiming, injury, reliance on big pharma. Like all of it done without any of our say-so, without any of our consent or compliance. It's just that this is what you're going to do. You're going to take this, you're going to wear this, you're going to do that. You're going to walk around the supermarket following these signs because we told you to. And anyone who sort of questions that narrative is considered to be a conspiracy theorist. And the issue with that is it's a conspiracy theory, as far as I'm aware, has been a phrase that's been used for probably a century. But it's been weaponized by the CIA to counteract anything that was going against the official narrative when JFK was allegedly assassinated. So this term now is sort of like it's almost become like a banner or a label that you just put on anyone whose opinion seems too far away from the status quo. It seems too out there, and it's going to ruffle too many feathers. It's going to get too many people to look at things from a different perspective. So this blanket generalization is just laid over people. So then there's no one questioning it then, because it's just a label you put on. Well, I haven't got to look at those chemtrails, because anyone who looks at chemtrails, that means they're a conspiracy theorist. That means they're crazy. So anyone who mentions chemtrails to me, I'm going to call them a conspiracy theorist. And then that's it. There's no need to go any further. Then there's no need for me to do any inquiry. There's no need for any investigation, because everyone knows that anyone who questions the chemtrails in the sky as being nefarious or part of an insidious agenda, they're crazy, they're a conspiracy theorist, and that's it. And so we're kind of left with all that, right? Like, we're left carrying that. We've got that cross to bear. Like, anyone who's aware of what's going on in the world, whose consciousness has risen to a certain degree, that they've broken through all of the conditioning, the programming, the indoctrination, the greatest psyop ever played against mankind, which we've just witnessed in the last few years. And so, like, what often happens is that, like I say, is that, like, again, very often I feel like I'm preaching to the converted. I think I say that every week. And there's probably people who are watching this going, no, I stand up and I say what needs to be said. Well, good on you. So you should, right? But there's lots of people out there who are struggling to be able to get that voice to come out of themselves and to be able to say what they really feel. Because they don't want the ridicule of, like, someone going, what, you're not a doctor, you're not a scientist, because that's what often happens. When, like, I say to people, like, I left school at 14, so I'm not allowed an opinion, because I'm not a scientist, I'm not allowed to question science. Because I'm not a journalist, I'm not allowed to question media or journalism. Because I'm not a doctor, I'm not allowed to talk about my own health and my own experiences and my own evidence. Of course, it's ridiculous. And again, I often find what that is that they position themselves behind these very, very authoritarian agencies that have created this hierarchy. Whereas if you don't believe in that, then you're an outcast and you're someone who should be ostracised and kept out of the way because you're someone who's crazy. You think outside the box. And again, that's just a way for me of shutting down any kind of debate. And this is the thing, right? One of the things about my my output, what I've been talking about the last few years, is about all people being able to remember their voice, to be able to rediscover their self-worth, to be able to find their calling. And this is partly it, right? Is that being able to really believe in who you are and believe that you matter and that you have got whoever you are, wherever you're from, whatever background you've got, it doesn't matter how educated you are. I mean, if people are still in 2026 gauging intelligence by education, to me that's like, whoa, you know. Most of the people I know are highly intelligent have walked away, turned their back on education, whether they've been educated or not. They now see it as ridiculous. All right. So it doesn't matter who you are, you deserve to be heard. You deserve to be seen. You deserve an opinion. All right. In fact, it's inherent. It's your God-given birthright that you should be able to have an opinion, and no one should be able to shut that down. And the trick is, right, is that it's not so much about having the opinion, it's how the opinion's delivered. And that's the thing with myself and how I exploded onto the scene during the Plandemic time, was that I'd done so in such a raw, passionate, fiery, aggressive sometimes way. And that's how, it wasn't just on the screen. I didn't sort of like put on this sort of like performance. That's just how I went around. I mean, I must have got into God knows how many fights and arguments during the Plandemic, and how many times I told people to fuck off on the street because I was refusing to wear a mask. And then that evolved into my personal relationships, where I found that I could no longer communicate with people because we were on such polarized paths, and we had such polarized opinions, and myself and sometimes them, we weren't able to respect one another and to be able to have a calm dialogue where everyone is able to speak. And even though you're passionate about something, there is still that element of a controlled delivery, respectful delivery. And I think that's, I fucked that up loads of times, you know, during the Plandemic, and I've burnt bridges, and then I've rebuilt them, and I've said my sorries, and people the relationships that have mattered to me, the ones that I really, really wanted to invest in and maintain, they're still thriving today. But what I'm saying is that like sometimes you have to go through that feeling of like, it's all coming out, and then you dial back, and you're sort of like, now I feel like the way. Even though I'm still incredibly passionate and I really, really care about what's going on in the world, and I've got very strong opinions and incredibly strong values, it's just that I'm able to communicate them in a different way now, to articulate it in a way that is not offending people, but it's more that I'm setting my stall out, and this is how I believe what's going on. This is how I believe I should be treated, and most of the time now I can see that is not getting the same abrasive, or it's not getting the same reaction. There is an opening there for conversation, for communication, and I often think that's lost when we're just turning up going rah, and we're too raw about the whole situation. So first and foremost, like number one is how do you find your voice? You know, like something for me, that's something we have to invest in. It's not something that's just going to come to the surface. There's no magic wands. There's no special pills you can take for someone to give you self-worth and to make you feel like you've got a voice that has got equal importance to anyone else in the world, that you need to be recognised equally. That's something that has to come from within. And that's what I'm often talking about, right? Is that if we want to change the world, we have to do it from the inside out, and then reality shifts through us. It doesn't shift like out there and then we're affected by it. We shift it from inside. And if we're all doing that in our little close proximities, then the world has to change. That's just the laws of attraction. That's just how things work. So I'm always interested in how to support people in finding that voice. And I believe, truly, like anything else, it's just practice. It really is. Like if you gave me a violin now, right, and I tried to play a tune out of a violin, it's going to sound absolutely awful. Give me 6 months trying to play that, and I'm telling you, I'll get a tune out of it. All right, it goes with anything else. Like you could sit there now and think like, whoa, I'd like learning Japanese. But if you sat there and studied it, invested your time, focus and energy into learning Japanese, you'd be speaking decent within 6 months. So I feel like there is no difference between us trying to learn that language or that skill out there, that trying to figure that instrument out or trying to learn that language, as to trying to learn the language of us or who we are and trying to practice that instrument so it comes out in the correct way. So again, it's just practice, right? And one of the things that I feel like often what we're met with is that we get, oh God, no, I don't want to do that. Like, I'll give you an example, right? We've got a MYGA space tonight, right? If you don't know what MYGA is, it's the Make Yourself Great Again platform that runs every Sunday at 6 p.m. UK time, 7 p.m. Central European. And often we do these different sort of subjects and conversations, and then after I've had a conversation, I've talked for a while, we offer the space up for people to come and have a conversation with me. And a lot of the time, you could have 50 people on the call, and it's the same reoccurring people who come up to talk. Every now and again, there's someone else who comes up, right? And often when they do come up to people, one of the questions that I love to ask people when I do this very often is how do you feel? And a lot of the time they say, I'm nervous. And I say, well, that's a good place to start, because we've not been trained in public speaking. All right? Everyone you see in the world who's good at public speaking, they've either been trained to do it or they've just they've broken through all of the blockages that has got in the way of that, and they've just kept doing it and kept doing it to the point where they become comfortable with it. Like anything, right? It's like riding a bike. So if you get that feeling like do you know what, I would like to be heard, I'd like to say something, but there's something holding you back, then we have to take a little bit of healthy control over that and say like, no, do you know what, I'm going to choose today to push through that a little bit, just a little bit. I don't know what I'm going to say. I'm just gonna put my hand up and I'm just going to say, well, I've got something to say, and I'm just going to have, even if it's one line that you've prepared. I get people come up sometimes in MYGA and they can't even talk because they're so nervous, and I can feel that, right? And I was the same once upon a time. I often talk about when I was acting, like when I used to act. If I went back into acting now, I'd kill it. I'd absolutely kill it, for the simple reason I've got no fear anymore. So I would just go in and I would just perform and I would express, and I'm not saying I would get every job, but in acting, when you find someone who's got authenticity and they turn up and they've got this freedom of expression, in the performing arts, that's a really, really powerful thing, and that gets a lot of attention, and there's a big vibration that comes with that, because you're allowing that expression to be free, right? Because back in the day when I was acting, I'd go to these auditions and I'd be stuttering and muttering and not being able to express myself. Even if I had learned the lines, even if I'd done my whatever, like practiced and stuff, I still had that feeling of like I was self-conscious because people were looking at me. Now fast forward 10, 15 years, and I've gone through such a transformative process in myself, because I've really, really spent time looking into what is keeping me in a feeling of self-worth, a low self-worth or low self-esteem. And often it comes back to self-love, right? It's just that I haven't loved myself, I haven't took care of myself, I haven't been kind to myself or gentle to myself over the years. And that's all changing now, and then what a beautiful fucking journey it is. And so it's not just me who feels like this, it's everyone around me who's done similar things. We're all arrived at a similar place where we're going like, do you know what, this is obvious to us now. This is how you break out of this stuff, is being kind to yourself, changing the internal dialogue, which is negative and it's judgmental and it's critical, transmuting that all the time and being very, very present and observational when that occurs, and to find out why that's occurring. And then also using that as an invitation to break through the reality that's presenting itself. So if all of a sudden, if someone goes, would you like to say something? You go, no. And then that moment then, and of course there'll be many more moments where you'll get the chance to do that, but that moment's past then, isn't it? And what a sad thing, because lots of the time people do want to say something. They do want to have an opinion. They've got strong opinions, strong values, incredible, profound principles, that to share them would be a wonderful thing. And I feel that we're kept in that, and it's not by chance or by coincidence. It's part of the design of our world, right? Of our structures and our systems, is to keep us in that small space where we're so terrified for someone to ridicule us, or so scared to be noticed, that often what we do is just keep our head down. And now we've arrived at a stage where we're looking around at the world. It's like, if we don't speak up now, where is it going to go? You know, how far is this dystopian plan, this totalitarian agenda, how far is it going to go before we all go, do you know what? Fuck this, mate. No, you're not doing this. And currently, when I look around at the world, there's not enough people doing that. There's not enough. And I truly believe that is a very, very strong correlation. There's a big relationship into how that interfaces on how they feel about themselves. So for me, it's always about that, right? It's always about coming back to how do you feel about yourself. And when you start to feel like, do you know what? Fucking, I feel good, mate. And you're like, well, I'm going to say something then. I'm going to speak up. I'm going to be the guy who speaks up. I'm not going to have this laying down. I'm not going to kneel to this. I'm going to say what's in my heart. And I'm going to do my best to say it in the most calm, controlled and respectful way that I can deliver it. However, that's not always the case. We are incredibly animated and expressive beings. And sometimes the emotion and the charge, it just comes out a little bit too fiery for people. But that's okay as well, right? There's no wrong way or right way to do it, as long as you're not causing someone harm, threatening someone, or your anger, your righteous anger or your passion has manifested itself in physical violence, which is not acceptable. We know that. Unless you're defending yourself from physical violence, then you just got to do what you got to do. But in terms of us being able to speak up, to say what we want to say in our hearts, we all feel it, but is there enough of us saying it? And the thing what's beautiful about human beings is it's a domino effect, right? It's a ripple. As soon as we all start saying it, it starts off as drip, 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 and then it all becomes a river, then it's a flood, then it's a fucking tsunami. And one part of it, as much as the individual awareness is a massive part, the collective awareness is also run parallel to that. So tonight on this MYGA this evening, because you're watching this on a Sunday, it's not a Sunday for me because I have to pre-record this so we get it out in time. We're going to be finding people's voices. That's what we're going to do. MYGA tonight is going to be called Truth Speak, and it's about not just about what's going on out in the world, right? But what's going on in here, you know. And sometimes that is about what's going on in the world. Sometimes that's reflective of the shit show, the confronting, challenging incarnation we're currently witnessing. And other times it's just about how you feel. And equally, it's important. So if you're free tonight and you'd like to come along, I think it would be very beneficial for anyone who feels a little bit stuck, who's not really able to be able to communicate freely and with their entire being embodied in that expression, then I think we can really help each other. So if that feels like something you'd like to do, you'd like to take the shackles off of whatever is suppressing your unique, beautiful expression, then come along. And bring some questions if you've got them, like situations. I think that's a very valuable thing, is being able to speak from examples. Like, I'll give you one for it. You could say that, do you know what, I'm trying to speak to my partner and they say this. And then straight away we're into role play, and that is so valuable, because then we can start to gauge like where we're saying and how that might be received, and how perhaps we can say things in a different way that has got the same potency, but it's just maybe more digestible to be heard by whoever we're talking to. So it's a great one and a fun one tonight. So if you're around, come along. And if you're not, then you know you can always look back on some of the stuff that we're doing on YouTube and figure out how you can rediscover and remember your beautiful voice, because it's important. It really is. and so are you. And you need to remember that. So if you forget, don't worry, I'll be hanging around somewhere to remind you. All right, enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and I'll maybe see you tonight on MYGA. Ta-da.